Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. On this here podcast, we like to talk Mets baseball, Giants football, movies, TV, and comedy. On today's episode, we'll be reacting to all the MLB hot stove news and moves made by the New York Metros, specifically trading Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers for Marcus Semien, not re-signing Edwin Díaz or Pete Alonso, signing Devin Williams, free agent closer, and former Seattle Mariner Jorge Polanco. So let's get into it, and away we go. Where does this offseason rank in franchise history? So far, feels like it's among the worst. Do I have trust in David Stearns and Steve Cohen to right the ship? Not really. We were essentially guaranteed a World Series title in 3 to 5 years, the first 3 to 5 years of Steve Cohen's tenure. That didn't happen. I gotta say, making the playoffs twice, advancing far in the playoffs in 2024, it's like, all right, we're on the right track. And then last season happened, and that was enough for David Stearns to just start dismantling everything. There was some buzz and speculation and rumors about how they're gonna start thinking about taking apart the core. I didn't think it would be like this. This is like, whoa, it's just an eye-opener across the board. I really didn't want to say goodbye to Pete Alonso. I didn't think we'd be saying goodbye to Brandon Nimmo. And Edwin Díaz, it's like I'd prefer to have him back, but I also think that my mental health and gut health and overall health would probably fare better with a closer that didn't make things so interesting. But this has been a really awful stretch. Just a real, when the Nimmo trade happened, I was sad. But it was like, okay, I get it. He's aging. He could be viewed as a liability in left field. He had career highs in certain statistics, home runs, RBIs, showed up and was available. But the record wasn't there when he started. I think the team was like 75 and 76 when he started. His WAR, not too high. Win probability added overall, not too high. And I just kept searching for the statistics and advanced statistics that would really show why this was the move to make in dishing Nimmo. And it's like, you can make a case either way. What bothers me is that I won't even call it, it's not a bad season. One subpar season. It wasn't even subpar. The only statistic that I'm seeing that really stood out to me in my digging was championship win probability added in terms of value batting. And that's when we did our season in review episode. That's one of the things that really stood out. One of the key takeaways was clutch hitting. What are you doing in big spots, high leverage spots? Are you producing? Are you able to get runners in and win ball games? It's hard to ignore from an offensive standpoint that we scored just about as many runs as we did in 2025 as we did in 2024. And we're top 10 in runs scored per game. But when it matters most, 7th, 8th inning and later, we had 0 come from behind wins. So it's, I guess that really didn't sit well with David Stearns. And, I had a group text going with some Mets fans, and it was, we were sad. But we understood that, and Stearns pointed this out in his postseason press conference, like, things need to change. We can't run it back like it is, the way it is. Things need to change, Definition of insanity. Doing the same thing and expecting different results, and he didn't want to do that anymore. Nimmo has been part of the team since 2016. Alonso's been part of the team since 2019. Diaz also 2019. So some of our longest tenured guys are no longer with the team. And that, if you're looking at it from Stearns' standpoint, if you want things to change, you want the culture to change, you want the outlook to change, maybe it's a matter of bringing in fresh blood, new blood, people that maybe aren't as worn down by the fan base, the media, the atmosphere. Maybe that's it. And I hope he's right, because it doesn't feel right now. And this is where, I wouldn't make a good GM, because I am too emotional in my decision making. My emotions are too closely tied to this team to make decisions like that. It's wild that you don't even make an offer to Pete Alonso. That feels like a smack in the face to Pete Alonso. I mean, Stearns can go out there and say whatever he wants about it. He's a great Met. We love to have him back, but you didn't make an effort, man. You didn't make an effort. The fact that Schwarber re-signs with the Phillies for basically the same amount that Alonso signed with the Orioles should tell you everything you need to know. The Mets didn't value his offensive production. They overvalued his defensive dependability. And that's been, I don't read too much into press conferences, but defensive runs saved and defense was what Stearns was preaching in the press conference after the season was done. And it's something that we brought up when we did the season review episode, was our defense was not great, especially down the stretch. And so you can score as many runs as you want, but if your pitching staff is not coming through in the clutch, and maybe they're getting the ball in play, is your defense making the play? No. So the knock on Nimmo is like, okay, I looked at the stats. He's like top 3, top 5 in terms of putouts in left field. Range factor was top 5 in left field. His arm, ironically, is not great. You look at him throw and you're like, feels like we could use something stronger there. So I would have liked to see us try and make it work after one down, quote unquote, down season. It was not a bad season or subpar season, but championship win probability added was the worst of his career, negative 1.9. And maybe that's in tandem with the fact that he did commit a few errors, both in center and left, during his tenure with the Mets, that led Stearns to say, yeah, we could do better. And I think a lot of Mets fans were like, this sucks, but this is just one of the dominoes that's going to fall, and this is just one of the pieces that we're going to add, and surely we're going to go after like a Kyle Tucker or a Cody Bellinger. We're going to land an outfielder. Well, now we need a starting center fielder and a left fielder. But this is what we get with David Stearns, having come from the Brewers, where like this is his reputation of, I'm not going to overspend. The Juan Soto move last season, that's a Steve Cohen stamp of approval. I don't think Stearns was too high on that. We've seen him go out and not sign top line name starters. We've seen him give very short-term contracts to mid-level pitchers. And this offseason looks like it's going to be kind of more of that same approach and philosophy. Kind of worked with Clay Holmes, kind of worked with Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, but I don't know, man. I don't have a good... so far, if I had to give this offseason a grade, it's like, I'm not an F, but damn, it's a D. Or C-, D plus C-. I just don't like what's going on. You lose such a huge chunk of your offense by not having Nimmo and Alonso, and you're now replacing them with Marcus Semien and Jorge Polanco? Okay. All right. Diaz, as much as he gives me a headache and a heartache every time he goes out there, one of the best relievers in the game from a number standpoint. It's just really interesting. It's not like we're getting older, so we need to get younger. He really is placing a major emphasis on defense. So it's a really tough stretch to be a Mets fan. Really tough. And to have, Diaz, not so much a gut punch, but like to have the Nimmo gut punch, then Diaz, which is like we kind of thought maybe he would go elsewhere, and then to have followed up immediately after Diaz leaving, having Alonso sign with the Orioles. It was just like, holy shit. And then, you get Marcus Semien in his 30s, you get Jorge Polanco in his 30s, which I guess are better defensively. Jorge Polanco is going to be our first baseman. Dude has played 0 games at first base. And you can tell me that the evaluators think he's going to do well at first base. Great, but he still has, I'll believe it when I see it. Now you're talking about possibly moving Jeff McNeil to left field. I guess I don't hate it. It's just like, I don't mind that in a pinch, but everyday left fielder? Okay. Polanco never played 162 games at first. Okay. McNeil, not an everyday left field starter. Okay. What? Everyone could be like eating crow and trying to remove their feet from their face after we make the playoffs with this roster, but I don't see it right now. I just don't see it. I didn't think the team was that bad last season. There were some really bad stretches for sure, but if we just had average pitching, we would be in the playoffs. And I know the clutch hitting sucked, and I know the defense faltered at the worst times, but it's odd to me that Stearns would point to those two things and say, okay, those are the two biggest reasons why we missed the playoffs. It was the fucking pitching, man. 1,000%. Why are you now looking to trade for Tariq Skubal? Why didn't you trade for him last deadline? So those are my initial thoughts. We'll dive more into the signings and the trades and all the offseason moves so far. I mean, the general reaction from fans and the media is negative. Just exasperated, frustrated, angry, sad. Not a lot of positivity. It's like, for me, I'm putting like the Pete Alonso signing on par with the Tom Seaver trade. It's like up there in terms of like moves that Mets fans will come to hate, I think. I don't want to throw the C word around, but there could be a curse attached to letting him walk. Mets had 3 Silver Slugger finalists after the 2025 campaign. Newly signed Baltimore Orioles first baseman Pete Alonso was one of the Silver Slugger finalists, Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. I mean, that's to replace that kind of run production, my guess, I don't know, man. I mean, the thought is, your top 4 run producers are Alonso, Lindor, Soto, Nimmo. You've now lost half of your top run producers. Who are you going to replace those top run producers with? Semien and Polanco, I guess. Juan Soto was also named an MVP finalist. He ended up finishing 3rd in the National League MVP voting. And it has to be due to the fact that he got off to such a poor start. On the morning of May 30th, he was slashing .224, .352, and .393. Yuck. And then since that date, Soto slashed .285, .418, and .596 with 35 ding-dongs, 31 stolen bases, and 105 games. Numbers that outstripped even those of Shohei Ohtani. So, seems like he got all that out of his system. The acclimation period, the adjustment period, he got all that out of his system. And those are the numbers that we can expect for a full season. Maybe that can help make up for the loss of Alonso, but I still think it would be nice to have someone around him. Diaz won his 3rd career Reliever of the Year award and 2nd with the Mets after posting a minuscule 1.63 ERA, which led all qualified National League relievers, notching 28 saves. He joined Josh Hader as the only pitchers to win this award 3 times since it was established in 2014. Diaz and Soto were also recognized on this year's All Major League Baseball team. Soto earned a spot on the first team, while Diaz made the second team. So that's a to move on from your best players like that. I don't know. I know this is not the right way to look at it, but it's like if almost like a not a child of divorce, but it's like, but what did I do? What did Pete do that made you not want to bring him back? What did Nimmo do to not make you want to bring him back? What did Diaz? It's like it wasn't their fault, was it? I just don't. Yes, Alonso had his worst season defensively, but it's a season. That's why it's weird to me that I guess they're just looking for more consistency. They want old, reliable. They want people that are just dependable, are going to go out there and be as consistent as possible, which is ironic because we signed Francisco Lindor to a mega contract. Now that was before David Stearns, and now there's even rumblings about trading away Lindor, which is like, okay, wow. If you want to send a message to the rest of the team, message received. We need more consistency and reliability out of our roster. We can't go on an 0 for 30 slump during the season. So, I mean, after the Nimmo trade, it's like I feel like everyone other than Soto is on the table. That's just where my head's at. It's just like if you're willing to trade Brandon Nimmo and he's willing to waive his no trade clause, it seems like, the tide really did turn, and no one wants to be part of this organization anymore, which is such a wild 180 swing from where we were after the 2024 season. What a difference a year makes. I know people overuse that expression, but holy shit. The fact that 3 of your top players who have been there for so long had no intention of it seemed like there was little to no discussion. I mean, we'll get into the nitty gritty with each of those guys, but Jesus, from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like we don't care that you want to leave. We don't care to make an effort to retain any of you guys. We're turning the page. We'll see if that pays off, or is this truly like we're just going to go into a rebuild and we're kind of phoning in 2025, knowing that we're going to get it more off our docket, off the payroll after, the next season, I guess. It's just funny that what do you believe? Because we told in that historic trade deadline sell-off of 2023, we told players like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander that we're not going to be competitive in 2024. And then we were, a win or two away from the World Series. So what do you believe? It's hard to believe anything, but you have to believe what Stearns said about, getting better defensively. The fact that he has now moved on from two of his best offensive producers in Nimmo and Alonso so that he could make these plays for Polanco and Semien, who are more sound defensively. Not to say that they're outstanding. They're like average. But I guess that's what we need, is just average. If we had average defense, we're willing to take average offense along with that, and we'll make the playoffs. That's the bet that they're making. All right. Nolan McLean was rewarded for bursting onto the scene down the stretch with 2 fifth-place votes in the National League Rookie of the Year race. And, I mean, he's kind of the de facto ace of the staff right now. So, knowing Mets' luck and how things go with this friggin' franchise, I'd expect him to get Tommy John next season. It's just like how it goes. Luis Torrens and David Peterson were both finalists for the Gold Glove. Peterson finished third in the National League in defensive runs saved, while Torrens, Peterson finished third in the NL in defensive runs saved. My brain glitched trying to read this, but Torrens spent just 642 and 2/3 innings behind the plate, which was hundreds fewer than fellow finalists Patrick Bailey and Carson Kelly. But his throwing arm put him in the mix. Among catchers with at least 100 innings, Torrens led the league in caught stealing rate, throwing out 20 of the 49 runners to attempt a theft against them. StatCast ranked Torrens in the 97th percentile in pop time and the 82nd percentile in framing. Yeah, I'd say I'm 100th percentile in pop time. I always pop, sometimes prematurely. His 3.76 catcher's ERA was also by far the lowest on the Mets. So, solid pickup who, if you're talking about defensive runs saved, ironically, Peterson is like now being dangled in trade talks. It just seems like Stearns went into this winter meetings and he's just being so thoroughly active, just like talking to everyone and anyone who will listen, and just being like, opening his jacket, like they do the watch salesman on 5th Madison Avenue or down in Soho. They just open up their overcoat and they got all kinds of watches right there in the arm dangling. He's just like, can I interest you in a David Peterson? Like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Here's my number. Gotta go. So, I guess, man. I guess. So those are the awards finalists for the Metros. In terms of the coaching staff, I mean, if changes need to be made, he was not fucking around about changes. I mean, I thought, to me, it's like they made the right move in dismissing a lot of Carlos Mendoza's staff. I didn't think that Mendoza should have been fired, but I do think that a lot of the coaching staff need to be held responsible and accountable for the team's performance, considering what they did in 2024. So I was cool with that. And so far, they've hired Kai Correa as bench coach, and they promoted, what's his last name? Yeah, Albert. I don't know what his first name is. Might be. Correa is 36. He first appeared on a major league coaching staff as a 31-year-old under Gabe Kapler in San Francisco in 2020. And then 3 years later, he briefly served as the interim manager after Giants fired Kapler. He's a Hawaii native who never played professionally but boasts a decade and a half of coaching experience in the professional and collegiate ranks. Albert's 44, spent 3 seasons as the Mets director of hitting development after serving as the Cardinals hitting coach for 4 seasons. Resume also includes several years working in the Cardinals and Astros organizations, with 1 year on Houston's big league staff. Troy Snitker has also been hired to become the Mets hitting coach. And unfortunately, the one guy that they didn't dismiss, Antoine Richardson, our first base coach, is not returning, which again is not a popular move. But I guess they're swallowing their medicine, and they're taking their medicine right now. The front office, they're just like, we're gonna have to make some really unpopular, unfavorable moves that people are not gonna like, but we that's all well and good if you have a plan and if that plan works out. If you come into this season like you've already, I think, without, as things stand right now, like last season, 2025, we were breaking attendance records. That's how pumped we were, because not only were we coming off an NLCS appearance, we then signed Juan Soto, and it was like, holy shit, we're going to the World Series, we're winning. And then to miss the playoffs after your fans showed up constantly throughout the season, and then to get rid of 3 of your most popular players, as it stands right now, it's like, I don't see the the stadium selling out, dude. But there's we still have 3+ months for things to work out. I think free agency was a bit slow last year. It's definitely picked up more this year, but to lose Antoine Richardson sucks as well. I mean, we had probably one of our best, if not the best, base running or base stealing seasons in franchise history under his watch, and he ended up leaving for the Braves, as did Jeremy Hefner. Hefner was canned, but Hefner goes and signs with the Braves, and so it became a money issue. Braves just offered more. Mets didn't make an offer. Okay. So now we have one of the youngest staffs in baseball, how will that translate? We'll see. And part of that is, when you do that, you're hoping that you can secure them, have success and secure them for a longer period of time. But in terms of unrestricted free agents who ended the season on the 40-man roster, Starling Marte, I don't know that we'll bring him back. I know that he's a clubhouse favorite. I think he really likes Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto really likes him, as does Lindor. So maybe that's a string that Soto pulls. It was interesting to see Soto's response to Alonso signing with the Orioles. It was just like, okay. So, sometimes that happens. So, like, you just have teammates or coworkers that are very successful on the same team or group, but just like have no emotional connection to each other. Just like it's not like they hate or dislike each other. There's no love. There's no like, oh, I'm so bummed and pissed off and disappointed. It was just like, yeah, okay. So Starling Marte, my guess is they'll bring him back on the cheap to be what? I don't know. Spot DH, pinch runner late in the game. Cedric Mullins ended up signing with the Tampa Bay Rays. He was the number 39 ranked free agent on the big board. 1 year, $7 million. Rays are hoping he'll rebound at age 31. Low risk signing for the Rays. And of course, he'll probably ball out of his mind down there in Tampa with the Rays, of course. DH Jesse Winker feels like he kind of fell out of favor with at least Mendoza in 2025, just like not being able to get healthy and get back on the field. So I don't know what's going to go on there. Would love to bring Griffin Canning back. He was like a nice bright spot amongst a really poor pitching staff. Ryan Stanek, I feel like he is worn out his welcome, and he's probably not going to come back unless they get him for ultra cheap. Ryan Helsley, I think he signed elsewhere. And then Tyler Rogers signed a 3-year deal worth $30 some odd million. And I think it was with the Blue Jays. Yeah, Blue Jays making moves, dude. They're not content with just sitting still and losing in horrific fashion in Game 7 of the World Series. So the Tyler Rogers departure stinks and stings and hurts. The fact that we didn't re-sign him. It was like, okay, we're trading away Drew Gilbert, one of our top prospects, who has really been welcomed and has been praised for his energy out in San Francisco. I would love to see, I think I need to see how he ended up finishing with them, because I know if he got off to like a really hot start and then people were all like, oh, we gave up this guy for rental. And I'm like, you morons. Of course, Tyler Rogers is not a rental. Of course, we're going to bring him back. Of course. And then we didn't. He had a negative .3 WAR in 39 games with the Giants. So 598 OPS. So I don't know, let's pump the brakes on Drew Gilbert being like the next big thing. Of course, I don't know. Yeah, Tyler Rogers signed 3 years, $37 million. Yowza. With an $11 million vesting option for the 2029 season. Okay, Toronto. Jesus. So, man, you want to talk about historically bad trade deadlines? Cedric Mullins, Ryan Helsley, and Tyler Rogers. All rentals, all didn't help your team. Well, Tyler Rogers did, and that's why I thought they would keep him, but I guess not. Diaz had 2 guaranteed years left and $38 million remaining on his contract with player options after the season. The next, he obviously opted out, signed with LA. Alonso had a $24 million player option, which he opted out of, signed with the Orioles. Frankie Montas had a $17 million player option for 2026. He was DFA'd, which was, whoa. That's another bad signing. AJ Minter has an $11 million player option for 2026. Did he exercise it? He did exercise his player option. Sweet. $11 million. So he missed most of 2025 with the lat injury, but would be nice. He was pitching very well at the beginning of the season before he hurt himself. So that'll be a nice boost to the bullpen. Left-hander Brooks Raley has a $4.75 million team option for 2026, which we picked up. Nice. He finished the season with a 2.45 ERA over 30 appearances. And then right-hander Drew Smith has a $2 million team option for 2026, which I believe the team declined, and rightfully so. It's like, Drew, come on, man. It was just, that's one of those guys just like constantly using the word potential. And it's like, are you ever going to reach that potential or what? The Mets also re-signed left-hander Richard Lovelady to a one-year deal, which prompted a lot of people to be like, are you fucking kidding me? He had a negative 0.4 WAR and an 8.49 ERA in 2025. 0-1 record, 10 games pitched, 11 2/3 innings, 12 strikeouts, 1.543 WHIP. He is projected to have in his age 30 season in 2026, projected to have 2 wins, 3 losses with a 4.76 ERA, a save, 1.324 WHIP, 31 strikeouts, 8.2 strikeouts per 9, 2.38 strikeouts per walk. I don't know, man. Got him from Toronto. I mean, he was really bad with Toronto, and he was better with us. 21.6 ERA with Toronto over 2 games, so it's a very small sample set. But he had a 6.30 ERA over 8 games with the Metros and only 10 innings pitched. So, all right, sure, why not? Can never have enough lefties, I guess. We also swung a trade for Rays reliever Joey Gerber. We claimed outfielder Ji Hwan Bae off waivers and re-signed left-hander Brandon Waddell to a major league contract. Brandon Waddell, I feel like was actually pretty clutch for us last season, if I remember correctly. He had a 0.3 WAR, 3.45 ERA in 11 games with 1 start, 1.277 WHIP in 33 1/3 innings. So he's projected to have 2 wins, 2 losses next season with a 4.09 ERA. With a 1.295 WHIP. So, and that's another lefty. Mets are listening to trades for Kodai Senga. I mean, like I said, I think they're just open to dealing everyone except Juan Soto. It's like, hey, anyone want to play with Juan Soto? Generational player. One-time offer. Offer expires in 15 years. Senga made just 22 starts and finished with a 6.56 ERA over his final 8 outings. He was also a borderline National League All-Star in the first half and is 2 years removed from garnering National League Cy Young votes. Senga is relatively cheap, even for a mid-rotation starter, with $30 million owed to him over the next 2 seasons. So right now the rotation is comprised of Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat, Jonah Tung, and Christian Scott. And 3 of those guys are locks, pretty much locks for the 2025 roster. Peterson, trade block. Sproat, trade block. Jonah Tung, trade block. Christian Scott, sure, why not? Trade block. Mark Vientos is a trade candidate. His name has always been tossed around to the point where Vientos is like, yeah, I just need to stop looking at my phone. I don't want to look at my phone anymore because it's just every mention of me is just about how I'm about to get traded. And the fact that they are willing to sign Jorge Polanco and stick him at first with 0 games played at first and not give Mark Vientos a chance. Not that that's the case, but it seems like that's the case. It's like, holy shit. All right, Mark. I can understand why you didn't look too pumped to be part of the team last season after a down season. So maybe he does want out. He's like, fuck this noise. Are you even going to have a competition there? There's also, they're saying, I don't know if it was Anthony DiComo, but he's saying like Vientos, it's unlikely that he's going to be the full-time DH. Why not? I don't know. I feel like ruling out Vientos as a DH and ruling out Vientos at first base is a weird move. Jeff McNeil has been a trade candidate for as long as I've been alive. 45 years. Just feels like we're always talking about McNeil. And what's wild is like when we talk about dismantling the core and like, is this the end of the core? Is this the end of the era? It was always Jeff McNeil who we all thought was going to be first to go. And yet there's Squirrel. The dust has settled and there's just a squirrel hanging out in the outfield. Like, hey guys, still here. Still pissed. Like, okay. Sure. Oh my God. So who will replace Pete Alonso? I guess Jorge Polanco, and a combination of Polanco and Vientos, or maybe just Polanco. McNeil going to left, and then at third, let's roll with Brett Baty. So you have Semien at second, Polanco at first, Baty at third. Baty looked pretty lost as of early July 2025 when he was batting .219 with a .664 OPS in a reasonably large sample. But from the 4th of July on through the end of the year, Baty hit .292, .357, .479 over 213 plate appearances. So a lot of people have some big expectations for Brett Baty, just like they had big expectations for Mark Vientos after 2024. And here we are. So, wow. Year to year, it just feels like people were all ruling out Brett Baty. So would I be shocked if Vientos has a comeback year and Baty starts to trail off? No, dude. It's just there were two. And if this is what Stearns is trying to nip in the bud with the inconsistency, then maybe you need to try and look to deal both of them. Whew. And then really quick, Mets Hall of Fame will get 3 new members in 2026. Outfielders Carlos Beltran and Lee Mazzilli, and manager Bobby Valentine. 3 great entrants into the Mets Hall of Fame. Will Pete Alonso ever be inducted in the Mets Hall of Fame? That's a huge question. I really thought that it was like the sky was the limit after he broke the franchise record in home runs, surpassed Darryl Strawberry last season. I just envisioned him with his number up there next to Gooden and Strawberry and Piazza, Hernandez, Seaver. Like, I just pictured his number up there. I pictured him talking to Mets Hall of Fame inductee, and I just pictured him like he is the next, not exactly the next iteration of David Wright, but in terms of maybe likability, but in terms of production, output, maybe not overall, but at least offensively. I thought he'd be a lifelong Met like David Wright. I really did. It's so I don't think I'll ever get over that. What's the panic level at? Out of 10, 7.5 to 8.5. I don't know. Not a lot of hope going into it. Marcus Semien and Jorge Polanco don't inspire a lot of hope to me. It doesn't scream hope. But Sean Manaea signing came over Christmas last year, so you might get some more activity around Christmas time, and then maybe I don't know. So let's get into the Brandon Nimmo trade. November 22nd, I saw he was mentioned as a trade candidate by Anthony DeComo, and I scoffed. Big time scoff. I was like, you're out your mind, DeComo. No way. And even DeComo agreed. He said he ended his newsletter offering by saying it seems unlikely Nimmo will end up anywhere other than back and left field for the Mets next season because full no trade clause, and we owe him almost $103 million through his age 37 season. So it's like, what team would ever want to pick that up? But he did note, for the first time in half a decade, Nimmo finished with a negative outs above average total in 2025. And I think, that pairs with the really basement level championship win probability added. But again, it's like, so one season and that's it. You like literally we're 3 years we're 3 years into an 8-year contract and you're going to call it quits on the guy. It's just wild. I just think it was premature. But, Nimmo wanted out. He had to waive the clause. That's up to him, and he did. So I think he's like, yeah, I think I'm done with New York. Like, I'm from Wyoming. My favorite team was the Rockies growing up. Texas, I think a lot of this has to come down to taxes, at least with Nimmo. It's like that money goes a lot further down in the Dallas region than it does up here in Queens. 2 days later, after he mentioned Nimmo as a trade candidate, Anthony DeComo mentioned Nimmo as a trade candidate. We traded him. Longest tenured Met prior to the trade, had 5 seasons remaining on the contract that he signed before the 2023 season. Meanwhile, Marcus Semien has 3 years left on his 7-year, $175 million contract he signed after the 2021 season. Nimmo waived the no-trade provision. His contract allowed it to happen, and as a result, will get an additional $1 million assignment bonus from the Mets. Semien won his second career Gold Glove last year, so that would make, okay, I get it. We're trying to upgrade defensively, so let's go after the guy who wins the Gold Glove. And then you move Jeff McNeil to left field, and that's your everyday left field starter. Weird and wild. I mean, I have to look into the advanced stats, and he definitely made some highlight reel plays last season, but there were also a lot of balls, giggity, a lot of batted balls that other outfielders would get to. So you are preaching defense. It's like maybe McNeil is not going to commit an error out there, but also what's his range factor like? Is it going to be as good as some of the other average to above average left fielders? I don't know. I don't think so. Nimmo shared a heartfelt message to Mets fans acknowledging how much the organization and city meant to him after over a decade in New York. I mean, the Mets are the only franchise he's ever known since high school, since 2000, when he was drafted in 2011. He commented in interviews that the Rangers really wanted him and that the Mets, quote unquote, weren't actively shopping him, suggesting he understood the context but still recognized it was a big personal decision. He was grateful and reflective and respectful, which is par for the course for Nimmo. I think it really affected a lot of, especially Steve Gelbs. He was just like, Nimmo was such a positive beacon of light in the clubhouse it's not just from a numbers standpoint, cutting that from the payroll or upgrading defensively, but from a clubhouse standpoint, he just was such a positive influence. But it's just, I don't know, it's still devastating. Drafted in the first round, 13th overall in the 2011 Major League Baseball draft at a Cheyenne East High School in Wyoming that does not have a high school baseball team. He made his debut in June 26, 2016, and he missed a bunch. He didn't play a ton in 2016. I think it was like 30 or 40 games. He played a little bit more in 2017. And then he really had his coming out party in 2018. 2018 was, in terms of WAR, was his second best season as a Met. 4.6 WAR. Playing in 140 games. Led the majors, led all of Major League Baseball in hit by pitches. Totaled 209 bases. OPS was 886. I think that was his age 25 season. I wrote a blog post about him, about how, just basically a love letter, like an appreciation post, just highlighting like why this guy needs to be a lifelong Met. He brings a certain level of energy to the team that I love, and that it's something that you hope infects the rest of the clubhouse. And then he stepped back in 2019. I think he was hurt a lot of this season. Only played in less than 70 games. He had the COVID shortened season in 2020, where I just write that season off for everyone basically. And then 2021 played on only 92 games, but had 3.5 WAR, so really over-indexed in 2021 in terms of production. His best season was in 2022 when he had a WAR of 5, led the National League in triples, playing center field, and had another stellar season in the first year of his new contract in 2023 with a WAR of 4. 2024, as great as that season ended up being, was actually one of Brandon Nimmo's worst as a full-time starter. It was actually his worst as a full-time starter, playing more than 92 games, was in 2024. So I wonder if that, combined with his numbers in 2025, are what really sealed the deal for dealing him. Stolen bases were up, RBIs were up, home runs were about even with what he did in 2023. But you look at his OPS dropped in 2023 from 829 to 727 in 2024 and then 760 in 2025. So, yeah, I mean, he had a bounce back year, sort of, kind of in 2025, but still, I guess it wasn't good enough. He had a worse defensive WAR season in 2024. So I don't know what he could have done or needed to do last season in order to step it up, other than this championship win probability added, because he was, ironically, 2024 was his best season in terms of championship win probability added for an offensive player. But last season was his worst. So just sucks. And funny enough, it's a very small sample size, but he has the highest OPS of any ballpark that in his career is at Globe Life in Texas, where the Rangers play. So I think it's only like 3 games, but he mashes there. He was 7th in offensive WAR in 2018, 9th in offensive WAR in 2022, and 10th in offensive WAR in 2023. 9th, 2nd in on-base percentage in 2018 in the National League, 9th in the National League in on-base percentage in 2020, and 6th in 2022. 4th most runs scored in the National League in 2022. He had the most triples in the National League in 2022, and walked a ton. Signature sprint to first. When he walked, he don't walk on the walk, he sprint on the walk. 2nd in adjusted OPS plus in 2018 in the National League. 9th in 2023 in the National League in runs created. He was 10th in championship wins probability added in 2020, 8th in 2022, and 8th in 2024. So I don't know. To me, I mean, you look at like comparable players that have similar stat lines over the course of their career. I think Michael Tucker is the closest comparison. So it's not exactly like we're losing I don't know, Kenny Lofton or something like that. But Marcus Semien, yeah, I mean, I guess it is an upgrade. 3 All-Stars in his last All-Star appearances in his last 5 seasons, dating back to 2021, and led the American League in runs scored and hits in 2023. Silver Slugger in 2021, Gold Glove in 2021, All-Star, 3rd in MVP ballots, Silver Slugger All-Star, 3rd in MVP ballot in 2023, All-Star in 2024, Gold Glove in 2025. So, and he's 34 years old. So it's not like defensively it's an upgrade. Offensively, we'll see. I mean, 45 home runs and 102 RBIs in 2021, and then he hit 23 or more home runs for the next 3 seasons, 74 or more RBIs over the next 3 seasons. Last season was kind of, I guess he missed a lot of games. Only 127 games played, and he had 15 home runs, 62 RBIs. So, can we expect a season where he hits 25 home runs and 80 RBIs? Would be nice, because that's basically replacing Brandon Nimmo's production. And you get an upgrade defensively. So that's the hope, at least. Hopefully he doesn't completely tank. He's about middle of the pack in terms of offensive WAR and defensive WAR for his career in 2025. But 7.7 WAR in 2023. MVP finalist 3 seasons out of 13. And let's see if I can find his championship win probability added. He was in the negative last year, negative 0.4. He's made the All Major League Baseball team, first team in 2021 and 2023, second team in 2019. His wins above replacement was 2nd in the American League in 2019, 3rd in 2021, 2nd in 2023, 1st at his position in WAR in 2023. I don't know why I thought that offensively he wasn't going to be as good, but You want to talk about similar batters. He's very similar to Francisco Lindor. I mean, look at this list: Jose Valentin, Francisco Lindor, Xander Bogaerts, Juan Uribe, Kyle Seager, Ian Kinsler, Asdrubal Cabrera, Johnny Peralta, Jay Bell, Brett Boone, and then in terms of most similar by age, Dansby Swanson, Javi Baez, Didi Gregorius. Some good names. Because I look at the names that Brandon Nimmo is associated with in terms of similarity scores, and it's not a lot of names jump out at me other than Michael Tucker. So I guess I feel a little bit better about that trade. It just sucks to see Nimmo go. Nimmo had proved to be fairly durable, although I think he played through a lot of injuries over the past 3 seasons. I really think he did, and I do think it impacted his play. He was able to play 150 or more games in consecutive seasons, including a career high 155 in 2025. But there were a lot of situations and instances where it's like, hey, he's not 100%. But then again, who is, over the course of 162, other than the Iron Man, Cal Ripken, ever heard? On-field achievements, he had his 100th career home run in late June of 2024, becoming the 16th player in Mets history to reach that mark. Over 10 seasons, Nimmo compiled pretty strong stats, almost 1,000 hits, almost 500 RBIs, more than 500, almost 600 runs scored. He was 4th in assists as a left fielder in 2025 and 2nd in fielding percentage as a left fielder. So I don't know that you can really point to defense as the reason why he moved on. Yeah, his wins probability added was in the negative in 2025. And that's coming off, according to Fangraphs, his best season in 2024 in terms of wins probability added. So, man. He had that 9 RBI game in April 2025, tying Carlos Delgado's record. He had he did have a walk-off RBI single against the Phillies in late August. He's top 10 in Mets history across a bunch of offensive categories. And it's just sad to see him go, Coming off a period where it's like, hey, I've been around the block, my guys. I've seen it all. And after that 2015 appearance, having gone through what we did in 07, 08, and then having to go through, that stretch from 2009 to 2014, where it was just, that was like 5-6 seasons of just subpar rosters, mediocre seasons, not a lot to look forward to, not a lot to get excited about. Like, we just look forward to Harvey Day. It's just like a pitcher. That was what we look forward to. And then, seeing in 2018 the emergence of Nimmo and McNeil, and then seeing Alonso come on the scene in 2019, it was like, okay, we got something here. We're onto something. And then to see it all just kind of fall apart and dissipate without a championship, it's just like, man, that is rough. Not quite on par with what we saw from 05 to 08. 05 to 08, it was like, wasn't homegrown. So I think there's a certain level of, it's different, right? Obviously you have Wright and Reyes, but, bring in Beltran, bring in Delgado, bring in Pedro and Glavin and all these mercenaries, you could say, free agents. It was different knowing that these guys are coming up from the minors. They're homegrown. Like, it just felt like this is meant more. I don't know. So it's Brandon Nimmo. We then went out and signed Devin Williams, and it's like, all right, I don't hate that as a setup guy. I think I like that as a setup guy. We signed him to a 3-year deal worth $51 million. So why would the Mets invest $17 million a year on a guy who posted almost a 5 ERA in 2020-25 and lost his job as the Yankees closer? Well, these numbers also belong to him. He had a 1.83 ERA from 2019 to 2024. He had 68 total saves, 60 holds, and 10 blown saves over 6 seasons. He had a 0.00 ERA in 4 postseason innings last October, and he's in the top 4% in strikeout rate, whiff rate, chase rate, and opponent's expected batting average in 2025. Last season, Williams made 67 appearances and pitched 62 innings, both career bests, and allowed 33 earned runs. The kicker, 16 of those earned runs, so almost half of those earned runs came in just 5 games. So when he falls apart, he goes big. He likes to make sure it's a goddamn spectacle. And then after the move was made and the ink dried, he caught some national attention for levying a parting shot at Yankees fans after his signing with the Mets. Quote, "For a bunch of people that didn't want me back on your team, you all sure are mad in the DMs," Williams wrote on Instagram. It's like, Devin, those are just Yankees fans. Like, have you not seen how they treated friggin' Juan Soto after he signed with us? So we can probably take a quick look at what Devin's been able to do outside of the numbers I just listed. But the Semien trade, it's like, all right, I hate to see Nimmo go, but Semien's going to give you some nice stability defensively and is not too much of a drop-off offensively. And with Devin Williams, that'll be a nice setup guy that we were hoping Helsley would be, or Stanek, or whomever. And, he was an all-star in 2022, 2023, Rookie of the Year in 2020. And, last season was just, let's hope it was an anomaly. He played from age 24 to 29. He was with the Brewers and appeared to be hurt. Like, he did not play in as many games as in his last season with the Brewers as he had the previous 3. And then with the Yankees, it was not pretty. His walks per 9 were down, but his home runs per 9 were up, and his hits per 9 were up back to the levels that they were in 2021. And his whip was 1.129, his worst in 4 seasons. You look at his 162 game average over this 7-year career, 2.45 ERA. If we can get a 2.45 ERA over 68 games with 19 saves, he had 36 saves in 2023. He was, very far down on the MVP finalist voting, but he still made the ballot. So 19 saves feels a little bit low. So I don't know if they're going to go after another closer, or if they're just like, we're just handing the keys to Devin. We're handing the keys to him, and let's see what he can do and churn out with his new contract. So, solid move. Elite strikeout and whiff skills. A lot of upside. Reasonable contract. I grade it positively. I don't see it as a negative. I don't see it as like, what the fuck. I don't know if that's sat well with Diaz, or if Diaz saw that and was like, well, they're not going to have the money they need to sign me, but cautiously optimistic, I think, is the phrase that pays. Does not have closer vibes, according to some fans on Reddit. Okay. Quality addition helps shore up the pen. So I think there's, optimism, but skepticism. Good piece, but not quite the missing star. And I think that's the MO, from David Stearns. Like, we just want good pieces. We don't need great elite pieces that can be boom or bust sometimes. We just need good pieces that can deliver results on a consistent basis. Take away the sting. It's not the salve that we need. Shortly after Devin Williams signs with us, Edwin Díaz signs with the Dodgers. He declined a $22.025 million qualifying offer. And then on December 9th, he signs a 3-year, $69 million deal, retains his status as Major League Baseball's highest paid reliever, opted out of the final 2 years and $38 million of his prior contract with the Mets, gaining an additional year and $31 million of guaranteed money for that choice. Apparently, the Mets did make a offer to Diaz that was $66 million. So we're $3 million short. And when you take into consideration, I think I saw this post somewhere, hey, the taxes in New York suck. There's no way around that. And I think it's a big reason. Like, okay, top media market, you get a lot of exposure, visibility, endorsements, blah, blah, blah. You're seen. You can probably transition into the media world if that's your shtick after your playing career is done. However, the taxes are outrageous and are only going to get worse. But they're worse in California, especially Los Angeles. So it's like, yeah, you had a number, you took it to the Dodgers, and they said, yeah. And then Diaz is claiming that he took that same number to the Mets, or he didn't even take that number to the Mets. He must have gotten an offer from the Mets. He had a number in mind. He took it to the Dodgers. They said yes, and he didn't go back to the Mets. I think that's the story that I'm hearing. But it's like, dude, you're actually going to get less because of taxes. Whatever, dude. It's just so wild. Like, it reminds me of the Saquon Barkley thing, not to bring up football again, because I know the baseball fans probably hate it, but like Saquon Barkley just balking over, what was it, ultimately $1 million to $7 million when you're going to make 30 to 35 to 40 million. Okay. It just, to me, it indicates like you didn't like the way you were treated with the organization. You didn't like the way that you didn't like the direction the organization was heading in. You didn't really believe in them to get over that hurdle, that last hurdle, and to get, not just to the playoffs, but to the World Series and win. You just didn't see it. And even though you're convincing yourself, well, the Dodgers gave me more, after taxes, it's going to be about the same or not less. But the Dodgers present you with an opportunity to win a World Series. They're the best team in baseball, man. And they're just getting better. And I hate it. It's like, and to think that we're supposed to be the East Coast Dodgers. Nah, dude. So, since debuting with the Mariners in 2016, Diaz has more saves than any other reliever not named Raisel Iglesias or Kenley Jansen, even while missing 2023 after injuring his right knee at the WBC. By the way, I think he's going to play in the WBC again this season. Let's hope and pray that he doesn't hurt himself again, right? While Diaz is older at 31, he was the highest ranking reliever on our free agent big board at number 11. So, yeah. I mean, it's tough. But to sign with the Dodgers, dude, my God. It feels, I don't know. I don't know if it's a generational thing, but it's hard. I mean, I guess Darryl Strawberry signed with the Dodgers too after his Mets time was done. But that, to me, I just think back to Strawberry and I think, okay, well, Strawberry really hated. I don't think he hated David Johnson. I think he hated Frank Cash and the GM, and hated how he was treated by the GM possibly and ownership. And so he wanted to get back at them, and the best way to get back at them was to sign with the friggin' Dodgers, who were essentially one of our top rivals during that time period in the late 80s. And maybe this is Diaz's way of getting back at the fans who were haters, or the clubhouse organization. I don't know. A lot of people calling this a disaster of an offseason, and it's hard to argue with it. It feels like a disaster at this point. The Dodgers, dude. You could have gone to, well, not the Phillies, but like, I don't know. Not the Braves, not the Phillies, not the Dodgers. Maybe you could have gone, another contender, the Cubs. I don't know. I hate that. I hate that it's the Dodgers. Ugh. No brainer for the Dodgers. Good God. It's like they have a need. It's like even after they win the World Series, this is where it blows my mind that I'm not a fan. My favorite teams, the Giants and the Mets, are both teams that when they win a championship, they have a hangover. They just cannot figure out how to keep that momentum and to keep building and keep improving. Yet the Dodgers win the World Series back-to-back seasons, and they keep improving, and they keep adding, and they keep. It sucks that it's the Dodgers, but you have to respect it a little bit. You have to respect it a little bit and be like, God damn, they just keep doing it. Similar with like the Chiefs, or I guess any dynasty really, outside of maybe the Patriots. It's just like we won a Super Bowl, we won a World Series, we won a championship, and it's back to, we're still gonna keep on it. We're not gonna just be like run it back with the same team. We're going to look to make improvements. We're going to see where our weaknesses were or vulnerabilities, and we're going to address it. I don't follow teams that do that. It's like you win the trophy, and then that's that. It's like the next season you don't make the playoffs. Yeah, the front office doesn't want to overpay and let sentiment drive decisions. The Dodgers do what contenders do. They add weapons and figure it out later. Dodgers didn't overthink it. The Mets overthought everything. I don't know if they overthought everything, dude. But it does feel like we're at this point in Mets history because of what's happened in Mets history. Sounds like a Yogi Berra quote. But like, we paid out the ass for Juan Soto, and now are we paying for that now? Kind of feels like it. It's like, oh, let's land this generational player, but then we have to say goodbye to all these other stalwarts and staples of the franchise because we have to accommodate Soto's contract. We'll see. The proof will be on the pudding. It's like it's a results-driven business, and we could look like fools for being so emotionally attached to players that couldn't get us to the promised land when you can get guys like Semien and Polanco and feel like you have a better shot of not having such a roller coaster season, I guess. Oh, so here's the details on Tyler Rogers' contract. 3 years, $37 million with the Blue Jays. 34-year-old right-hander had the lowest average release point in baseball last year, releasing the ball just 1.3 feet off the ground. He doesn't rely on velocity and doesn't generate much swing and miss, but has a combination of sinkers and sliders that befuddle batters. Hasn't posted an ERA over 3.6 since 2022 and is elite at suppressing home runs and walks. Two areas the Jays bullpen struggled with last year. Rogers also recorded the lowest barrel rate in baseball last year at 2.1%, meaning hitters rarely connected for hard contact. Also finished with the sixth lowest ground ball rate among qualified relievers in 2025, 62.1%. And he owns the 14th lowest ERA among all qualified relievers since 2022 at 2.60, lower than top closers like Jean Duran, Mason Miller, and Aroldis Chapman. So that was, again, that's another surprise because it's not like he came to the Mets and stunk. I think he was probably one of our best, if not the best, relievers down the stretch and our only good acquisition at the trade deadline. I know he was 0-3, 0.7 WAR, 2.30 ERA. So it wasn't like, in terms of his career averages, just didn't see enough out of him last season to think it was. You look at his WAR. It's his time with the Mets. Not that it was a bad WAR, but it was the lowest of his career, other than the 2020 season, which we all know how that goes. The 2020. Let's just erase 2020 from the friggin' timeline. You know what I'm saying? And then we come to Peter Morgan Alonso. Bear, Big Meat Pete signed with the Baltimore Orioles on December 10th after 7 years with the Mets, heading to Baltimore on a 5-year, $155 million deal. The $155 million deal, as I mentioned, just beats the $150 million pact over 5 years that Kyle Schwarber signed with the Phillies to stay in Philadelphia. And by the time the winter meetings arrived, New York basically said, fine, talk to everyone else. Ultimately, the team didn't even make him an official offer, which I cannot understand that. Especially after what you put him through last season. It's tough. Just sitting here as a fan, like you're looking at both sides, like who is being the stubborn mule in this? Is it really Scott Boras? Is Scott Boras driving this divide between Pete Alonso and Mets front office? Like, did Stearns just get really pissed off with dealing with Scott Boras? I can understand that, but to not even make him an offer. And there have been so many numbers thrown around with Pete Alonso. And to have it be 5 years, $155 million, like what? I don't know. That doesn't feel outrageous to me. It just, that feels well within our reach. And once those 5 years are up, he can retire as a Met, hopefully with a World Series title. Hall of Fame, Mets Hall of Fame. And now he's going to most likely finish his career with the O's. Ooh, you know, and again, this has to go back to Stearns emphasizing the need for better run prevention. Alonso with his worst season defensively, according to Defensive War. Sure, Orioles fans have to be stoked. He's going to hit a lot of ding dongs in that stadium. Orioles have new ownership, and this is their first big splash move, I believe. After going on that run that they had in 2024 where they make the playoffs and then finishing in last season. This is definitely a huge boost for their offense, and will be interesting to see, like, is he going to start every game at first base or if he splits time as DH? Because if he ends up, it reminds me of Rafael Devers debacle that happened with Boston last season, where he's like, I'm not going to play first base. You're not going to get me to play first base. And then he ends up playing first base for the Giants after he gets traded. Is this similar thing going to happen with Pete, where it's like he's DHing most of the time? It's like, well, dude, you said you didn't want to DH. Is it because they gave you like $2 million more? It's just, that drives me up a wall thinking about, like, you have this monster contract with so much money and you're going to squabble and fight over fucking $2 million or $7 million when the total is so much more than that. I really couldn't picture him with another team. I really couldn't. And I really thought that sentimentality and emotions would play a bigger part in it for him, and that he would work to get a deal done. For a play here that you just don't get to see in the media, in the press conferences, and the interviews. There's, because people are not speaking their truth. They're not really being 100% honest as they would like to be. I mean, he only had 2 seasons where he wasn't an all-star, and he's a fucking workhorse, dude. I mean, he averages 160 games a year. I mean, just, 161, 152, 160, 154, 162, 162. Had a better season this season than he did last season in terms of WAR. Led the league in doubles, 126 RBIs, 38 home runs. Silver Slugger, All-Star, MVP votes. Did ground into a lot of double plays, but 871 OPS, which was the second best of his friggin' career, dude. I just don't get it. There's something... you can't point to, oh, well, he had a bad defensive season. It's like, that's it? That's all that we're going by based on? Sucks, man. He turned the most double plays as a first baseman, but he also had the most errors committed as a first baseman. So is it really a money issue? Funny enough, in terms of similarity scores from Baseball Reference, the number 1 most similar batter, Chris Davis. Who was the first baseman for the Orioles and DH for the Orioles. It's pretty funny. Also, Rhys Hoskins, Matt Olson. Similar batters through age 29. Mark McGwire, number 1. Matt Olson, number 2. Chris Davis, number 3. Is that the same Chris Davis? Oh, I think there's it's different Chris Davises. Cecil Fielder at number 4. Richie Sexson, number 5. Tony Clark, Ryan Howard, Tino Martinez. Most similar by ages, Richie Sexton, Rhys Hoskins, Shohei Ohtani. Cecil Fielder, Matt Olson, Mark McGwire. What's wild is those are a lot of really big time names, and none of those people are Hall of Famers yet. So, wild. Yep. Drafted by the Mets on June 9th, 2016. In the second round of the amateur draft that year, granted free agency on Halloween of last season, signed on February 12th of 2025, and then granted free agency November 4th. He was made $30 million in 2025, So, I mean, again, we're not that far off. 31 mil a year average value in this new contract with the Orioles. So it just makes me think there's something else there. Like the player option, 24 million, he declined. You're telling me we couldn't offer 31 million a year? We didn't even make an offer? It's just fucking so stupid. I hate that so much. so very much. Oh, he sent a pretty cool thank you message that you can tell was written by him. Sometimes you can read the message and you're like, some PR chick wrote this, but definitely you could tell that the thank you message was from Polar Bear. He said he gave everything for the team and appreciated the support and energy from the fan base, and there's no way you can argue that. I would say he'd often take it too hard, the losing, and I'd say he put too much pressure on himself. And maybe when he's in Baltimore, he won't have that same kind of pressure that he's putting on himself, and so he'll have an even more productive season than he did last season. It's just not making the effort that really, really grinds my gears. How do you not make an effort? How do you not make an offer? I mean, is it as simple as, we're not getting the whole story and Alonso did what Diaz did, and as soon as he got the number he wanted, he said yes and didn't even take it back to the Mets? I don't know. But yeah, this is the one that fans will remember 10 years from now. This is the one that is going to haunt us, I think. I don't want to be negative, but it's just in my DNA to be negative and pessimistic. And it's like, this just feels like Tom Seaver 2.0. Not exactly the same. Obviously, we didn't trade him away for a bucket of balls, but to not retain him and to not re-sign him, that, if we're sitting here 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we still don't have a World Series title, and Pete goes on to smash with the Orioles. Not to say that the Orioles are going to go and win the World Series, but you'd have to imagine they're going to have a greater level of success. That one's going to hurt. That one you might alienate a whole new crop of Mets fans with that move. Ugh. Not to overstate anything and be dramatic. That's not like me, right? And then the final move, at least as of Tuesday, December 16th at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Standard. Jorge Polanco signs a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Mets. Over his 12-year career, Polanco has logged a total of 0 innings at first base. He's generally viewed as an average defender at other positions. He did hit 26 home runs with an .821 OPS, mostly as a designated hitter last season. This is a wild stat that they MLB.com did a whole friggin' article on, long-ass article. But he had the biggest drop in strikeout rate last season, with a large gap between Polanco's drop of 13.6 percentage points in first place and second place being Paul Goldschmidt's drop of 7.8 points. That 13.6 percentage drop in strikeout rate from 2025 to 2024 is also the biggest single season strikeout drop on record ever all time. So in 2024, he was striking out at a rate of 29.2%. In 2025, he was striking out at 15.6% rate. He made his only All-Star appearance at the position in 2019, moved to second base in 2021. He's a switch hitter who is better versus lefties. So, it's like I don't hate the signings. I don't hate Marcus Semien or Jorge Polanco. That's not the point here, folks. In terms of projections for 2026, 244 average, 21 home runs, 64 RBIs with a 749 OPS. Again, those feel like numbers that Brandon Nimmo could give you and that Pete Alonso will blow out of the friggin' water. But again, I think, is this setting up a big move to fortify and solidify your starting rotation? Are we back on the train of let's not sign an over-the-hill, past their prime stud like a Verlander or Scherzer to a mega contract? Let's go out and get a pitcher entering their prime on a big contract like a Tariq Skubal or Paul Skenes or something like that. So I thought this was a good point. The Mets are operating with a confidence that borders on arrogance, even indifference. Like they know they're playing chess and we're playing checkers. Like they're thinking next level, next step, and we're stuck in the past, which is, I'm sure there's a degree of truth to that. I'm not going to deny that, but to think that Jorge Polanco is going to make up for Pete Alonso, no. Marcus Semien, though, it's like Nimmo plus Alonso versus Polanco and Semien. Who you got? Who you got? Offensively, it feels like it could be a toss-up with the edge going to the Mets, but then defensively, I think maybe that's the point, is that Semien is top of his game defensively and Polanco is average. But then again, Polanco's 31. He had his third best season in terms of WAR last season with the Mariners after a really down year in 2024. In 2021, he hit 33 home runs, 98 RBIs, had an 826 OPS, and 841 OPS in 2019 when he was an All-Star. Actually made the MVP ballot at age 25. So, is this tweak? I know that in that article that I mentioned, he changed his stance and just made a bunch of tweaks and adjustments to his swing, trying to be less of an uppercut type batter, and it paid off. So in terms of OPS plus, this was 2025 was his best season, as a full-time player. So again, it's not like we're getting a washing machine in return here. We're replacing with capable players who have churned out decent production and numbers. It's just, I think it does come down to emotions, right? We're emotionally attached to Nimmo and Alonso after everything they've been through, the journey that we've gone on with them, and seeing the highs and the lows and the challenges and the roadblocks and the setbacks. And we're pulling for them. Like, am I pulling for Marcus Semien and Jorge Polanco? As of right now, no. But once you see them in uniform, once they get that first base knock, once they hit that first home run, once they get that first RBI, you start to warm up to them. You see what they're like from a personality standpoint. Things can change, but as of right now, it's like they're in a tough spot, man. They're in a tough spot to be able to come to a franchise that is hungry, starving for a title, much like, Seattle was. Seattle, I was pushing for Seattle to get to the World Series last season because they have never gone, much less won. So, and before that, Polanco was with the Twins. So I get it, man. He's right there with us after 12 years of service up in the big show. Which move hurt the most emotionally? It's Alonso. 1,000% Alonso. I think Diaz is the most not Diaz. Nimmo is the most surprising because it's like, well, he has 5 years left on his contract and we're bailing on him. But all right, fine. Alonso hurts because it's like it's not like he signed, Soto. When we made the offer to Soto, it was like it blew out all other offers out of the water. And I don't know that other teams got a chance to rebut or make a counteroffer. But with Alonso, it's not like the Orioles went well above and beyond with a 5-year 155. Considering, like, there were reports about Alonso asking for like 7, 8, or 9 years, which would have come at I think it would have come at a lower per year rate of like 28 or something like that, 28 million. So that just really bugs me. So Alonso hurts the most. Nimmo hurts the second most. Diaz the third most. Because even during his saves, there was only one. I don't know. I feel like the majority of his outings, other than 2022, the majority of his outings were like, hold on to your breath, hold on to the edge of your seat. Like, you don't know what you're gonna get, and it's not a sure thing. So but you have to look outside your own bubble and see that he was one of the best relievers in the game. Do you trust the front office's vision? I think I understand the vision because of how we got into this predicament of having one of the highest payrolls and not making the playoffs. Like, it's unacceptable. And how do you combat that? How do you work your way around it, especially after you doled out one of the biggest contracts in Major League Baseball history to one player? Yeah, you need to kind of like tap the brakes a little bit, but this feels like it's very drastic. But he said changes need to be made. Changes turn around. Oof. So I think I understand the vision, and from a business standpoint, they ripped off the Band-Aid. We can't run this back and go through the same thing that we did in 2025, but I don't know that this was the right approach, man. Because like 2021, you bring in Lindor, you lose 85 games, but then 2022, one of the best teams in the National Leagues that just ran out of gas at the end of the year, 100 plus wins. 2023, you figure, okay, let's try and add to what happened in 2022. I just didn't agree with. I mean, the Scherzer and Verlander signings, I just didn't agree with. 1,000%, I didn't agree with it. It's almost like if we had Stearns after that 2022 season, 2023 would have panned out a lot differently. Would we have gone to the playoffs? Maybe. But this is now Juan Soto's team. I don't even think you can look at Francisco Lindor and say Francisco Lindor. It seems like maybe the team. I don't know what the team's thinking. I don't know what the front office is thinking at this point. Because if you're so willing to turn on a guy like a stalwart like Pete Alonso, who's the face of the team, along with Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo and Edwin Díaz, that doesn't make me think that there's a whole ton of. Are they turning on Francisco Lindor now too? Wild to say out loud. The fact that his name is even being mentioned, not just by fans, but by the media, as like a potential trade candidate. It's like, whoa, dude. Okay. All right. So, what does the lineup look like without Alonso Nimmo? I don't even want to think about it, dude. I think I'm still in denial mode. I really do think I'm still in denial mode. It's just like I'm gonna turn on all right, time to watch Mets spring training, or I don't even know if I don't even really watch spring training, but opening day, let's turn it on, and I'm gonna look at the roster and be like, what year is this? Where am I? Alternate dimension. The Tariq Skubal trade, if they can pull it off, cool. Can we sign Cody Bellinger? The Tariq Skubal trade, though. Skubal's 28. This is last year of his contract. Produced a 2.30 ERA and 62 starts over the last two seasons. But Skubal is a Scott Boras client, so if you got sick of dealing with him when it came to Pete Alonso, buckle up. Tigers and Skubal were more than $200 million apart in contract talks last year, but a lot has happened since then. Garrett Crochet, for instance, signed an extension with the Boston Red Sox, 6 years, $170, following a deal from the Chicago White Sox. Skubal, meanwhile, authored another season worthy of the American League Cy Young Award. One industry source, unaffiliated with the club, speculated that Detroit may look to ask for 2 top-level starting pitchers and a position player prospect, which the Mets could offer up. Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, and prospect Jet Williams. It's a lot to give up, but my God, dude. You figure if he gives us 5 years of really top echelon pitching, is it worth it? Sproat gave us some really good outings. Jonah Tong, it was topsy-turvy, and I haven't seen anything out of Jet Williams. So, and signing Cody Bellinger, that's a guy that can play outfield and first base. So if we're really trying to emphasize the roster flexibility, then that would be a fit there. I think he's age 30 now. And then there's interest in Framber Valdez, Michael King, and Wilson Contreras. But you'd have to think that we're not done yet. I hope to God we're not done yet, because it just feels like there's a lot of really big gaping holes on this team. Center field, left field, and DH, first base. 3 huge positions on the team that, and I know our farm system is in a better spot now, and then we have a lot of great prospects, but it feels like we're more than a year away from seeing a bunch at the major league level. Of course, you might, September call-ups, you might see something different, but really need a lot of the younger guys to step up. Are they going to step up, or are they just going to get dealt? Outside of the magical 2024 run, the Mets have won one playoff game since 2015. Yeah, so that's part of it, man. High expectations and not meeting those expectations. And I think it's wrong to point the finger at someone like Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo. It's just wrong to do that. They're not the reasons, man. It's like Tom Coughlin talking to Eli Manning. It's not your fault. He thinks it's his fault. It's not his fault. when Coughlin was forced to retire. Sure, the Jets fans love that one. So here's the quote from David Stearns that I'll leave you with. We've got certainly work to do, but there are a lot of good players out there, and I'm confident that we're really going to like where our team is once we get to opening day. You better hope so, David, for your sake. But hey, at least we're getting an $8 billion casino. That was approved, so you can drown your sorrows at the roulette table. So in addition to spending out the ass to park and buy a ticket for the game, you can now lose even more money by gambling, blackjack, poker, etc. Yeah, I have to get out. I mean, I keep saying I have to get out to a game, but it's just so far away and so expensive. And I'm technically out of market, which I just found out 4 years into living here in Mercer County that I'm out of market. I'm a Philly DMA. Can you believe that shit? So now I gotta, I don't know. So I am not particularly pumped or psyched about this upcoming season. I am not. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird, and it's gonna take a while to adjust to. And I don't even know if getting off to a hot start is really gonna assuage my fears or concerns or doubts. Again, 45-24. We started last season, missed the playoffs. So one of those. It's gonna be a season where it's like, let's check in at the All-Star break and let's see how things are going. But so far, I feel like, from all accounts, it feels like we're losing the offseason. But then again, how many teams that win the offseason end up winning the World Series or going to the playoffs and being a division winner? Not just in baseball, but in sports in general. Like, how many off seasons that are won translate to wins on the field, on the rink, and the court, etc. I'd love to do a deep dive on that someday, but not today. That's all for me. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for supporting, for sharing, for commenting, for the hate, for the love, for the money, the power, and the respect. No money, but eventually that's got to come, right? And we'll talk to you next time. Next up, a lot of movie talk coming down the road. Fantastic Four, First Steps. I got a review in the queue for that. Predator Badlands. Want to get that review out hopefully this week. And then before I pretty much take off for the rest of the year, try and do like a little bit of a second half of the year update from some funny stories and life lessons from what would be early June. Yeah, the last 6 months of the year. So the last episode I did was covering like Memorial Day weekend. We'll go over what happened, the biggest stories from June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And in that episode, probably cover everything that's gone down in terms of my unemployment and upcoming employment. Holler at ya, boy. That's right. I'm back. I'm a contributing member of society again. Hopefully things don't fall apart. But until next time, adios, muchachos.